Hello everybody, welcome to Farscape Rewatch, episode 20. Hey, episode 20, we're right up the end. And as usual, I'm CantWearHats, and joining me is RedNightmare.
It's a boy!
Spoilers!
Sorry.
Well, we're going to be talking about the episode Hidden Memory, which is basically the second part of a two-parter, which is sort of half of the four-parter that is the end of the first season.
Which also has a fifth part in the start of season 2?
It's weird. But we'll get to that in time. But first of all, we have to continue on from Nerve, where we found the Gammak base. We met Scorpius for the first time. Chiana turned up again, and we managed to save Aeryn.
This is actually the first time we have a previously on Farscape.
Yeah, which is done by Dargo, and it does like a whole bit. It's not just the last episode; it's like a bunch of other stuff as well. Like a lot of stuff leading up to it. But at the end of it, Crichton was still trapped on the Gammak base and being subjected to the Aurora Chair. He was doing the Farscape Rewatch himself. We were chatting about this after the end of recording, but if we had been a bit cannier, we probably should have called this podcast the Aurora Chair.
Yeah.
We just didn't think of it until we actually watched the episode. We're like, oh my god, that was perfect.
I mean, to be completely honest, that would have been very confusing for everyone who hadn't seen the series.
It would have been a bit inside baseball, but that's okay.
I don't like doing for this show.
Fair enough, yeah. Alright, let's continue on with the adventure. So we actually start off with, once we come back from the previously on, Moya is orbiting the planet which has the Gammak base on it. But Moya actually can't leave and cannot starburst because she just entered full labour. So,
yeah, she's having a baby.
Yeah, like right now. Except there's a few issues because Pilot has discovered the baby is not a normal Leviathan.
No.
There's something odd about it. We don't know quite what it is yet, but yeah, this isn't going to be an easy birth. I mean, really, what were we expecting?
Like, let's be honest, the spaceship having a kid, do you think it's just done?
Well, also, it's Farscape. We can never do things easily.
That's true.
Something has to go wrong. But meanwhile, Aeryn has woken up and she wants to see Crichton. She's demanding to see him. And this is when the rest of the crew reveal that he's still being tortured on the Gammak base in the Aurora Chair.
Aeryn's direct response is, okay, then I'm getting up. Let's do this. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah, let's go get him. She's still hurting, but she's determined to go and rescue Crichton. Everyone else is telling her that's a terrible idea. You're not well. You need more time to rest. And she's like, nope, going to get him.
Yeah, and I like that Dargo and Zan, after realizing that there's no talking her down, join her. And Aeryn's like, don't try to talk me out of this. And Dargo's like, I'm not going to. I'm coming with you. If you get to be stupid, I can be stupid. I get to be stupid as well.
I actually wrote down the exact line, which was, if you can be an idiot, I can be an idiot. I like that. I did like that line a lot, yeah. So they all head down using a blind path among the sensors that Chiana set up for Chiana's return in the previous episode.
They actually used the shuttle in this case, because that's the only way they can stuff 3 people into one ship.
Yep. And
can you imagine being with 3 people in that tiny little prowler cockpit?
It can fit 2 people, but that's about it. Like,
not the face! Not the face!
Meanwhile, back on the base, Krace and Scorpius are now both trying to rip memories from Crichton's mind with the Aurora Chair.
Yeah, they're tag teaming him right now.
Yeah. Even though, we've got hints that they don't really get along. Krace and Scorpius might be on the same side, but they're not really friends. But they're both torturing Crichton, and Crichton is holding something back, and Krace wants to know what it is.
I mean, Crichton keeps insisting that he's not holding anything back on the wormholes.
Actually, there's quite a good sequence, because he has convinced that he's holding something back, and they're pressuring him. It's like, what are you hiding? He's like, I'm not hiding anything, for several times, until at the end, with the extended kind of torture sequence where he's screaming in pain and all that, he breaks a little bit, and he's like, I'm not hiding anything about wormholes.
Yeah, he's hiding something else.
So yeah, he gets thrown back into the cell with Stark.
At this point, there's actually something funny I saw popping up on screen, because it says guest starring Lenny Tupu, and I'm like, Lenny Tupu's been in every episode.
Well,
How
yeah.
is he guest starring? He does the voice of Pilot.
He's guest starring in the flesh.
Yes, as Grace, but
I know it is a bit of a weird situation, yeah, that he doesn't get a credit at the start unless he's actually turning up as Grace when he is a
really
guest star.
Me.
It would have been fun, starring Lenny Tupu guest starring Lanny Tupu. That's probably why they did it, actually, to avoid that happening. I don't know.
I think that they were just having a bit of fun with that.
I know, there's probably some breakdown of how contracts work. I don't know. It's probably something boring and technical like that.
Yeah, in case for anybody who forgot, Lanny Tupu does both the voice of Pilot and plays Crace.
Yeah, which you would not know from watching, because they are very different. Like, Crace's voice sounds nothing like Pilot's, so, you know, Lanny Tupu does a great job with that. Anyway, yeah, we're back in the cell with Stark, and Crichton is out of it. He's kind of losing it a bit. He thinks Stark is sent to Scorpius to spy on him.
Yeah.
It's like, you're a spy for Scorpi, and Stark's like, I'm not a spy for Scorpi, I'm not. And then we actually find out that Stark is not as crazy as he's acting.
No, he's hamming it up.
Yeah,
because as he puts it himself, it makes sure that Scorpion leaves him alone. He's actually trying to escape because he's built a sort of sequencer from pieces of metal he's found and stolen around the base whenever he's been dragged back or forth. And he can basically use it to put in a sequence, hoping to get the door open, but he can only try one sequence at a time. So he's basically going 1 1 1 1, 1 1 1 1 2, 1 1 1 3, etc.
9 9 9 9. I am the master of unlocking. Yeah, and he's been there for 2 cycles and has been trying that for at least part of that time, and it still hasn't worked.
Yeah, and John's like, "You're going to be here forever." And I do like that. Stark is like, "At least I'm trying something."
Yeah. We've kind of had that reversal of when John gets thrown in the last episode. He's kind of the sane one, and Stark seems like the crazy one. And now we realise that after being tortured in the Aurora Chair, it's the other way around, and John is losing it, and Stark is actually trying to escape. And
he's lucid.
Yes, that's the right word.
I also like that Stark showed John the sequencer, and he goes to the door to try a new sequence, and he realizes, shit, I just told him something, and the chair is going to pull that out of him. And John's like, no. I haven't broken yet. I've been keeping something from them. I'll keep this from them as well. Stark's like, eventually the chair finds every memory. I'm the only one that can keep things from that chair forever.
Yeah, so we better get them out of there quick. Now, this is also when Gillian hacks into the comms again.
She calls in to check up on him. John's like, you need to get them off my back, figure out something. Okay, she will, and then they break contact. And then later, right before they pick up John, because the chair needs maintenance, she tells him to think about their kiss.
Right, because there is actually a scene of the techs are trying to increase the power of the chair, fiddling with it, and Jelena makes her way in with her little briefcase full of tools and things, and gets underneath it, and there's another Peacekeeper tech down there, and he's like, oh good, you're here, and you know this stuff better than me, and she's like, yeah, leave me to it, I can fix it. And she takes out what looks to be some kind of plastic rod and inserts another one, and then off she goes, and it's some kind of sabotage, but
sabotage.
I'm telling all y'all, it's a sabotage. And so, yeah, this must be the distraction she was talking about. And that's when she contacts John in the cell, says, yeah, you have to remember our kiss on the Zelbinian.
And he's like, no. That's the thing I've been keeping from them. That's what I'm trying to block out. Because John knows if they see that, they know Jelena's an accomplice of his, and they'll arrest her.
Yeah, he's trying to protect her. But then Scorpius and Crace come back for John, and they open up the cell, and
I like Stark because at this point, John's actually still talking to Jelena. She's telling him, just trust me on this, just trust me. And Stark buys him a bit of time by walking to the door and being like, Scorpio, let me in the chair, let me in the chair.
So Scorpius, again, he's like, well, what are you hiding, John? Right, give him the chair. And they're going around and around again, and he remembers the kiss during the torture, and then suddenly we see Crace in the memory?
Yeah, this is actually John is actually seeing the DVD extras.
Not even. I mean, this isn't even a deleted scene. This is fan fiction. That's what this is.
That's even better.
Because what it is a false memory, which is it's Crace talking to John on Crace's command carrier.
I do like that John is kissing with somebody who from the back looks like Jelena, but then she turns around and it's clearly not Jelena.
Yeah, and he's talking to John, and he says, "Thank you for giving me all the wormhole technology, since with this I can have the power to rise through the ranks in the Peacekeepers, because my family were farmers, I was conscripted, and all that stuff." And Grace is like, that didn't happen. What the... what?
I do have to comment that, because he says in the memory, heavy air quotes, Grace talks like, "Oh, it's my family, I was conscripted, never really was part of the lead." And John responds like, "Okay, thanks for the history lesson, but why do I even care about this?" And I like that Chiana writes John very well. Like, very lifelike. Because that's exactly what he would have said in that situation.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, like, they don't go into detail about how the false memory works, whether or not it's part suggestion and it uses John's mind to come up with the rest, or it's like it's probably fine that it doesn't bother with that. Basically, she sabotaged it to make a false thing.
I'd like to believe that Chiana is very good at writing Farscape fanfiction.
But yes, Craze can't believe it, and Scorpius is kind of looking at him like, "Oh, there's something else going on."
And I like that Craze is telling John, "Tell him it's a false memory." And John, at first, is as surprised as Grace and Scorpius, and then he's like, "Grace, does this mean the jig is up?"
Yeah, he figures out what's going on.
And he's like, "Okay, fine, let me play along with this."
And then he plays along and says, "Yeah, I exchanged the information with Craze in exchange for my life." And Craze keeps saying that it's a lie and it's not true. And Scorpius says, "Well, there's one way to find out."
Yeah. Why don't you go into the chair?
And Craze is like, "You wouldn't do that. I don't believe you'd do that." And Scorpius is like, "I've got unconditional authority on this base. I can do whatever I like."
I also like that Grace says, "Never has been a captain who has had this much disgrace put on him." And like Scorpius' response is like, "Well, there's a first for everything."
Right, yeah.
Which reminded me of what you said last week, that Scorpius being a different species gives him an outside perspective on these things.
Right, yeah.
It's like, yes, I don't really care about this honor stuff. No, I'm just doing my goddamn job.
Yeah, he seems to be much more focused on the work and all that. And it's interesting, when he's trying to convince Crace's guards to seize him, because he says, "Seize him," and then Crace is like, "Don't listen to that man, you're my guards, listen to me." And then he has a speech about, "I have unconditional authority to do what is right for the mission." And actually what he says is, to the guards, is, "Do what you feel is right in your hearts."
Yeah.
Put Crace in the chair. And they do. So, Aeryn is now finding a way into the base and leaving Dargo and Zan waiting in on the surface because they land on the top of the base.
Yeah, Aeryn points out that they can land here because if they put up sensors to guard the top, that would give away the fact that there are actually peacekeepers in this base and it's not just a hidden block of nuked out material.
Exactly. And so they're making their way in, and Crichton has been thrown back in the cell while they give Crace the chair. Stark is actually able to help Crichton because Crichton is kind of collapsed on the floor. And
his mind is coming apart at this point.
Yeah, and so Stark cradles him and holds him for a bit. And Stark, if you remember, has his metal half mask on the right side of his face, his right. But what he does is he says, "I can help heal you." So he takes that off, and what we see is like a glowing orange light where the other half of his face should be.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, it's like looking into a sun?
Yeah, a little bit like that. It shines a light over John, basically, which helps him come back from the impending madness.
Mm-hmm.
And then Stark reveals that he is actually a member of the Bannock slave race. They had been kind of almost wiped out by peacekeepers, and they clearly have some kind of mental or psychic ability because he can keep thoughts hidden, and the energy under his mask allows him to hide his feelings, cloud his thoughts, which is what has allowed him to endure the Aurora Chair for 2 cycles.
Yeah, I like that he said, the literal line he uses is, "What made me a slave keeps me alive" in here.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that made him a slave, but I
don't know either. I'm expecting that will come up at some point.
So, Aeryn has infiltrated the base. She's got down through the top because she's left Zan and Dargo up there to guard their escape. And she finds Chiana. And it's actually quite a good reveal because Chiana is on her way out of her quarters. Mm-hmm. And then just hand comes around the side of the door and just pins her to the wall. And she's like, what is it? And she's like, remember me? And it's Aeryn, pops her head round.
I like her smile, the slight smile on her face. It's like, hi, Jelena. That's not what she says, but that is the type of smile she has. Like,
yeah, and then she thanks her for saving her life in the previous episode.
Yeah, because Jelena was the one who got the medicine.
Then she tells Aeryn that Scorpius thinks John is blocking a memory about wormhole technology, but actually it's the memory of, when they kissed on the Zerbinian. John's trying to protect us. So now Aeryn has filled in on that. And so up on the top, while Zan and Dargo are basically setting some explosives, we have them, just a short scene between the two of them talking about, basically Zan is asking about Dargo's Qualter blade. And
a question I would have liked early in the season, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, it's like, it's an unconventional weapon. Why do you use that?
Dargo responds with, it's a gun sword! Gun sword!
Gun swords are fucking cool, man!
That's not actually his response.
No.
That should have been his response.
What it is there's another race more feared than the Peacekeepers who laid siege to Dargo's planet for over 100 cycles. And so by the end, the Luxons had run out of conventional weapons, and all they had were their unconventional weapons, these old... And because quarter blades are basically supposed to be used at the end of days, is what he says.
Yeah, they believe that at the end of days, quarter blades will be the weapon that brings the Luxons to freedom.
Yeah, so they're kind of the weapon of last resort.
Yeah, that's basically what made, I guess, ceremonially, they are the weapon to always keep at hand. Yep. Because you never know when the end of days comes.
I think I do agree that it might have been nicer a bit earlier on in the series, but it doesn't feel entirely out of place here. I guess maybe it's a little bit of foreshadowing of, like, this is kind of a big deal. This is the end of the season sort of thing. I don't know, maybe something like that.
But, okay, that thematically I could accept that.
So, now it's time for Aeryn to try and bust John out of prison.
Before we keep going, there is something that really annoyed me in this scene, because at some point, Jelena says to Aeryn, like, why are you already out here? You need at least 10 solar days to recover. And I'm like, days? Wait, we've suddenly started using actual terms for time? Where did this one come from? Like, we've been using micros, we've been using arns, we've been using cycles, and now you want to start using days?
Don't worry about it.
I was like,
I probably figured...
I know it's minor, but it's like, that's kind of dropping the ball. Like, you've been using all these different terms, you could have come up with one for days.
It's
like,
probably one term too far. Like, oh god, now how many different things do I have to keep track of? I have to keep track of different swear words, different words for bodily parts, and different measurements. And like, yeah, okay, days is... well. They do make a point of almost always referring to them as solar days.
Okay.
I guess that's something.
That's something, but it's just like...
Sure. Well, listen, I'm from the UK, where we have a terrifying mixture of both imperial and metric measurements in day-to-day life. It's a confusing hellscape. Okay. So this is fine.
I was so taken aback by that. Like, wait, what's that term doing in Farscape's vocabulary?
Well, I was a little bit more taken aback when Crace said in the fake memory that he was shanghaied. Although I can put that down to it being constructed from John's own mind, but nobody mentions that.
No.
Anyway, Aeryn is going to bust John out of prison, and so she is basically working under the pretense that there's something wrong with the cell, and
there's a signal coming from it. We see Chief Security Officer from the last episode being like, "There's nothing here. I don't know what you're talking about. See, I'll use the scanner. Beep 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 beep."
Oh,
what's that? Aeryn responds, "Probably nothing."
And so they open up the cell, and actually the security guy goes after Stark, because that's actually what he's detecting. He's detecting his magnetic thing. And
brilliant bluff from Aeryn there.
Yeah, it's like, wait, how did you know about that? Did you know about that?
That was just a happy convenience, I think.
I think what would you have done if that hadn't worked? I guess probably knocked him out and taken.
Yeah, you used his key anyway. Yeah. I think that was probably the plan at this point. I like that Stark's, because the head of security finds that the sequencer, and Stark just charges John because he's like, "You actually told them? What the hell?" And he starts half choking him, actually. And at that point, Aeryn just knocks the chief security officer out, and Aaron's just standing there, and Stark's like, "Who's that?" And John responds, "It's the radiant Aeryn's son."
She's with me, let's go.
And I do like that Stark does get the sorry in there.
He's
does say sorry. Like,
oh god, now we actually get to see Grace in the Aurora Chair.
oh. And I like that the memories he's reliving are the ones of his family. All the things that... Basically everything that happened when they were on Moldus' planet.
Well,
where he saw his brother burning alive and his father coming again.
Okay.
Of him being shanghaied.
Okay, here's something I don't get. So, when they're discussing, should we put Grace in the chair, and whether or not the memory is real, Scorpius says, well, you can't make stuff up for the Aurora Chair.
Yes.
And then Grace says, but that never happened. And then Scorpius is like, well, was your family farmers? He's like, well, yes. It's like, were you conscripted? Well, yes. It's like, how did Crichton know about that? It's like, I don't know. Grace, yeah, you do, though. Like,
No.
Do you know?
Half of that John knew. John knew it was conscripted. He didn't know it was a farmer's family. That wasn't... I don't think it was ever mentioned during that old black magic.
Yeah, well, he was mentioned that it was conscripted. It's like, well, did you not remember that he saw some of that from...
Also, Grace was under a lot of stress at that point.
Okay, alright. But yeah, so now we actually do see more of that from Grace's memory, and Grace is...
Like, great, yeah, the memories Grace wants to relive, the ones that disturbed him the first time. Let's look at them again.
Some of these are actually really horrifying. Like, we see the shot again of from that old black magic when Grace's brother, or the image of Grace's brother, gets burned from the outside. Like, we see that again. That's horrible, horrifying.
There was one thought running through my mind while we were watching this. I'm like, damn it, it's a rerun.
Yeah. Well, now
Chris is getting reruns, no new episodes for him.
Well, now Chris gets to do the rewatch.
Yeah.
Only a few episodes, though. But
the Chris is Life rewatch podcast.
This is your life. Da, 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 da. Scorpius just comes in with a big red book. Like, do you remember this voice? Oh, dear.
Trying not to spit out my water onto my keyboard over here.
What's the most important thing in comedy? Timing. Meanwhile, back to these scenes of torture.
Yes, sorry. Because they keep probing Grace's mind because they can see that he's hiding something.
Yeah, and again, kind of like John, we know that he's not hiding what they think he is.
I hadn't even realized what he was hiding until we see it.
Yeah, and what we actually see is we see the memory where he kills Lieutenant Teague from the end of that old black magic, where it's like, and reveals that he had received orders from Peacekeeper Command to come back and then deliberately disobeyed them. Yeah,
I do have to admit that when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Of course he was hiding that.
Yeah, but then the security breach is announced. They've discovered that Crichton has been let out of his cell, and so Scorpius orders the base to be sealed so they can't escape. And while the group of them are escaping, so we've got Stark, John, and Aeryn, and Jelena. Basically, they send Stark up an escape, or up like basically a fire escape.
Yeah, and for some reason they don't follow him.
Well, I think the idea is to split up so that they can. I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit odd that they don't all go up that way. Anyway, they send him up and right, you go. Let's all get out of here. But
they hide.
Yeah, they're forced to hide under the floor. And Jelena finds out they need actually a senior officer's ident chip to get the rest of the way out.
Some guards pass by. Nobody notices them. Jelena goes out at some point because she's the only one that can walk around the base freely. And she finds out that everything has been closed, even the shaft they were using before. They need the senior officer's ident chip to open those doors at this point. So John's like, okay, let's go back as a senior officer. And Aaron's like, no, you're in no condition to do that. I'll do it.
It's like, but you are, Aeryn. Okay, apparently.
In a better condition than John is at this point.
I mean, yeah, that is actually true. She might still need rest to recover, but John is just kind of useless.
Her hand's still shaking, but...
Yeah, we do see that a couple of times where her hand is shaking. He's like, stop it! No! I'm fine! I'm fine! And so Aeryn goes off to go and get an ident chip. And now we go back to Moya and we get back to the troubled pregnancy.
Yes. And actually, I think we're doing some things out of order with these scenes, with the scenes in Moya, as in, I think some of them show up earlier or later.
Well,
but it doesn't matter a bit. Because these two stories, that was actually something I noticed, and it's a minor gripe with me, but these scenes have no interaction with the other. There are basically two episodes happening, two mini episodes happening parallel.
2 lines, no waiting. It's
yes.
And so, okay, according to my notes in the synopsis, this is when we actually see that we need a vacuum to give birth. Moya needs a vacuum inside. Which,
when you think about it, makes sense. I mean, if you try to push the kid out with pressure on one end and vacuum on the other, it's like...
Yeah.
Just launch it. Like, could you see that? A baby just being...
Yeah, and so actually, because we've established that Pilot is not experienced with Leviathan burst, so when he finds this out, he's like, because the only people left now are Chiana and Rygel. It's like, well, you better go find somewhere to hide because this is going to happen.
You got like 80 microns, like 80 seconds. She's like, what? Where do we... I like that the pilot's like, my den is going to remain pressurized? Like, yeah, that helps. We can't get there in 80 seconds.
And so there are some pressurized containers inside the cargo bay, and so they have to make their way down there. So they run off down... As he's saying this, like, as he's finishing his pilot's sentence, we actually see Rygel immediately start to move off in his little thing. It's like, oh, get out, get out.
Move. Chiana running after him. And I like that they find Chiana runs into the cargo bay, finds the pods there, and she tries to open one, and it's locked. And the one in the other one opens, the pressure pod, and it's like, that's Rygel's like, well, there's plenty of room in here. And she's like,
I'm not getting in there with you.
And the pilot's like, you have 10 microns, hurry.
And she's like, all right, fine.
Fine. And they lock the thing in there in time, but they're in there together, and it's the weirdest, creepiest scene.
It is, like...
Creepy old man times 10.
Rygel's being super creepy.
Yeah.
And Chiana's like, what's that? And he's like, oh, what's what? It's like, where's your hand? It's like, oh, it's down there. And he's like, get off. Oh, you creepy bastard, Rygel.
Like, they're not even the same species. They're not even the same size. And the only thing I could think of was the description you said a while ago about Farscape's description of one man's journey into Australian BDSM. Like, what?
Yeah, I guess so.
For some reason that popped into my head.
Oh, and
just watching the scene.
Oh, and also in the scene where they're in the container, we get Rygel's helium farts again.
Yes,
because things weren't weird enough.
Both he and Chiana start talking in high-pitched voices, which, okay, let's be honest, that was perfect timing for a callback to that one. Like, that was brilliant.
That? It's just a little helium. I don't like being in confined spaces.
Oh, that's just great!
Oh, actually, I realised we did skip over this. In a previous scene, while things are still reasonably okay and the birth is just happening, a couple of scenes ago, we have them talking about how Rygel has had hundreds of offspring.
Yo, right, yeah. But he's never been present for any of the
birth, because they're trying to figure out what to do, and he's like, "Well, I don't know. I've." And John's like, "You've never been there for one of them." He's like, "No, and all my offspring were small and handsome, like their father." I actually like in that scene though, as you're talking about there, you have Rygel he's actually holding like a schematic, which works pretty well with the little puppet. He's just like looking up from it. Anyway, yeah, I realised we didn't talk about that, but that's fine.
It's worth mentioning because it's a good joke, but
yeah,
it's not really an instrumental scene. Well, at that point, it does get established that it's not a normal baby.
Yeah. Now we've covered that. We go back to Rygel and Chiana are in the tank. They've escaped from the vacuum.
I like that at the end. There's the fogged up glass, and there's Rygel's hand
just wiping it down.
It was a. I'm like, oh god, no! Please don't reference that scene.
No,
Titanic. No, close.
No, that's weird. And Pilot reveals he can see the child, and you can get out now. And then this is when Moya gives birth.
In a way.
Sort of. This is when Moya starts to properly give birth.
Yeah.
And so, but then we cut away and we go back to Aeryn on the Peacekeeper base looking for a senior officer, and she's gone straight to the Aurora Chair to find Crace. Oh, this is a great scene.
I love this scene.
This is such a great scene.
Good. This scene actually, I love. It has so many functions in the story.
Yeah.
Like, not only is this the way how she gets the ident chip, that's just the plot function, but it's also the function of the arc of Aeryn.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, I think this is Aeryn's arc wrapping up for the season.
Yeah, it seems to be. So the way the scene unfolds is Crace is in the chair, and Aeryn approaches him from behind, so he can't see her. She starts talking to him, and he doesn't recognize her, and he says, "Who are you?" And she says, "I shouldn't expect you to recognize me from my voice."
No.
And then she kind of approaches and comes around and says, "I'm irreversibly contaminated. Do you know who I am now?"
And he still doesn't know it until she actually shows her face.
But that's a great callback of like irreversibly contaminated, which is from way back in the first episode. And he's trying to appeal to her Peacekeeper past and saying, "I'm still your superior officer. You will release me. You are."
And she's like, "Fuck no."
Well, she says like, "I'm no longer a Peacekeeper," and he's like, "You swore a blood oath. You were a Peacekeeper for life." And he's like, "Nope." And
your blood oath means nothing to me. I've seen what I've lost by leaving, and I haven't lost anything.
I think the exact wording is, "I lost everything thanks to you, but you know what I realized? Everything I lost isn't worth a damn."
Yeah, that's just fine, and it's
perfect.
So good.
It's like, yes, that is.
Like I said, this is the scene where her arc for the season ends. This is where it gets wrapped up in a nice bow tie.
Yeah, because everything she's learned since she left on Moya made her realize being a Peacekeeper is just, it means nothing, and she's much better off the way she is now. And that because we've talked about several times in that the temptation of going back to a Peacekeeper life has been offered to Aeryn several times.
Yes.
And she's thought about it, like she's entertained the idea, whether or not it was realistic. She's let that idea be entertained in her head. But now it's like, no, you know what? Screw that. I'm done. It's not worth coming back to.
No.
And she will never go back. Crace can't order about anymore. And then she takes his ident chip. And then Crace is like, "He'll track you down and I will kill her." Because, Crace is nothing if not consistent.
Yeah, that's true.
He's exactly the same thing he said to John.
Yeah, I'll track you down and kill you.
And she said,
yes, blah, 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 blah.
And then she says, "I will, I'll show you your life."
No.
What does she say?
Give you...
oh, yeah.
I give you your life. Like, the first time she says it, it's like, okay, I'm not actually going to kill you. Then we find out what she means with that. Because she walks to the controls of the Aurora Chair, turns it on, and it's like, "I give you your whole life. You can watch it, all of it." And she turns it on.
Cranks it up.
Walks around, and then pulls the lever to the maximum.
And then just walks away, and the end of that scene is Crace screaming in the chair as it rotates. It's like, I have in my notes, it's like, at the end of that scene, it's just, "Damn, son!" That was intense.
It's probably worse than killing him in some ways.
Yeah, I love that reveal, like you said, of like, "I will give you your life, your whole life," and then
boink.
And oh wow, that's a really powerful scene of like Aeryn confronting and finally letting go of her past and her desire to return to being a Peacekeeper. Like that's
I love that. That was the scene that, like I've said a few times, that completes the arc.
Yeah,
that's where it all comes together. That's where
I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, that's two characters in a way wrapping up their arcs. Like Dargo did it last week. Aeryn does it this week, and I'm expecting the other characters to do it as well. The ones with an arc.
I think we sort of saw a bit from Zan several episodes ago. I think Rhapsody in Blue it wrapped up one part and then left another part hanging. But Rygel doesn't really have an arc.
I don't expect Rygel to have a wrap up of an arc this season, and that's fine.
That's fine, yeah. But we've had some great stuff with Aeryn and with Dargo in terms of their wrapping up. Crichton isn't really wrapping up. He's kind of progressing. He's just
I could see there being a wrap up at the end.
We'll see, but it's not doesn't happen this episode. He's still
it doesn't
too
happen.
out of it.
No, I'm expecting that to be the final episode of the season.
Yeah.
To be honest, because that's when you want to wrap up the arc of your main character.
That's true. So we'll see. Meanwhile, back in the hole under the floor where Jelena and John still are, Jelena's asking him if he wants to be with Aeryn, and she needs to know before she gives up everything to go and
go along with them.
Yeah. But Aeryn arrives before he can answer, because he's being very evasive about the whole thing. Doesn't say anything.
Do we need to talk about this now? And she's like, yes, if I'm to leave with you and leave this all behind, I need to know this.
Yeah,
I like that every time we have Jelena, we have her music cue, which was established in, I think, Pika Tech Girl. And it comes back here again, and it's a very melodic... I think it's a wind instrument, but I can't place it.
Yeah.
It's very minor, it's very light, but it really works for... It has that romantic feel into it.
It's very much the kind of romantic melody, which is a little bit...
It's not as on the nose as a romantic melody. It does have its own thing going.
Its purpose just seems to be like, this is Jelena's theme, but it's deliberately like a romantic link between her and Crichton, which for a character's own theme is a little bit kind of one-dimensional, but it does what it's supposed to do. And so Aeryn has turned up, and okay, we've got the ident chip, we can get out of here. And John's like, right, I'm off, let's go. And then Jelena asks Aeryn if she wants to be with John, because John's not answering her. And then Aeryn avoids the question.
Yeah, because she's like, look, not now.
We don't have time for this. Like, if you don't go with us, you'll be killed.
They'll find out and they'll kill you. So does it really matter at this point?
And yeah, I'm kind of with Aeryn on this. It's like, okay, I get that if you go with them and he's not in love with you and she wants to be with Aeryn, it'll be awkward. Sure, you won't be dead though.
Yeah, look, Dargo's a very nice guy. He's even into peacekeepers, so we might be able to set something up.
At the very least, you won't be captured and killed or tortured by the peacekeepers, so come with us. But Jelena actually kind of decides to do the other thing. She says she'll take care of herself, and she just runs away. I
mean, to be completely honest, she is able to take care of herself.
Yeah, but
she's shown that she can, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's able to hide herself.
It's true, but it's a much bigger risk than going with them.
But then again, do you realize that you're asking her to do what Aeryn did?
Oh yeah, that's
entire life behind.
That's true. Like she is being asked to throw her entire life away. It's not an easy decision, but she says, "Right, I'll take care of myself." And because they're running out of time, Aaron's like, "Right, okay, fine. I'm gonna go. Let's get out of here." And so back on Moya, which has now been repressurized, and the baby has been mostly born, except that the part of the offspring can't actually get out. It's not a normal Leviathan baby.
No.
We get a visual of it, and it's covered in weapons.
Yes, it has a similar shape as Moya, as in it has a bulbous part at the front. It's actually a smaller bulbous part, and it doesn't have three stalks meeting at the end and the tip. No, not three. There's two big wing-like structures going to the back.
No, there are three.
There are three.
It has two on the side and one coming out from the middle. Except they don't meet up. They're much further apart. When you look at Moya, you've got the limbs that come out the back and the thin part coming off the bulbous front part, and they all go together and they meet up. And the wings on the side are very thin. Mm-hmm. With Moya's baby, the wings on the side are actually thicker and have connecting part. They look more like kind of nacelles. And there's the long part coming off the middle, which doesn't meet up with them. It's it's much kind of a wider design, but it's also covered in weapons,
which
it's not supposed to. Well, Leviathans aren't supposed to be. Leviathans don't have any weapons, and there has never been a Leviathan with weapons before. And Pilot figures out that when Dargo broke the contraception wall half a cycle ago, which was in They've Got a Secret.
Yes.
He released a catalyst which must have contained DNA sequencing to produce weapons.
Which explains why in They've Got a Secret, that stuff was so incredibly uniform.
Right,
even regimented. I mentioned that at that point.
Yeah.
Partially knowing where that was going. But that was actually probably a specific coded piece of genetic material, and that's why it was uniform, because it was just cloned to high heaven without any variation.
Yeah, it's basically genetic engineering to produce a Leviathan baby with weapons. It's just like a peacekeeper experiment.
Which is interesting that they put that experiment in Moya.
Yeah.
Why? How? She was a prison ship. I mean, you usually don't double up on your functions, especially not with experiments.
Well, that contraception wall was there. It was in place to stop it from happening, so it's possible.
But it was still... what was behind the wall was still an experiment.
Well, okay. This is just some spitballing, some theorizing.
Okay, I didn't expect there to be a reason, but go ahead.
But, okay, this is kind of like trying to reverse engineer why this would make sense. And this is not to like defend. Like, in story, it's like I
have no problems with it being in the story because it makes for a very interesting story, and that's enough for me.
But what? Okay, so here's what I figure. Here's some headcanon, I guess, is that say Moya was going to be used for this experiment, but then they needed another Leviathan transport, so they put the contraception wall in to put the experiment on hold until Moya had completed her mission. But then, of course, Moya's mission was then interrupted before they could get back, remove the contraception wall, and continue with the experiment.
That would make sense.
That's how I would explain it. And
I mean, we might get that explanation.
Who knows? Maybe we will. I actually don't know. Like, a lot of the time I'm trying to keep things that I already know back from when we do this, just so that we explore the episodes as they happen. But this time I'm not. I have no idea. I can't remember if that ever gets explained.
I assume that we might get a throwaway line later in maybe season 2 or something. But I like that idea. That does make a lot of sense.
So there you go. That's my headcanon for why that was in Moya specifically.
Yes.
But what's actually happening is the offspring it can't get out properly, and what it's doing is it's charging its weapons to try and break free.
Because it's scared. It's like, I want to get out. I want to get out. Wait, I have these guns. Well, I'll shoot my way out.
Yeah.
Through your mother?
Yeah. It's a scared newborn. It doesn't kind of know what it's doing. So Chiana comes up with a plan to try and help. It says, wait, can I get me down into one of the vents near there? Can you put breathable atmosphere in there? Because I'll try and loosen something and get it out. So Pilot does that. It gets down there into the vent and is trying to force some stuff out of the way. It doesn't quite work, though. Yeah. So Chiana has another idea, which is, okay, the only way to cut free is to allow the offspring to fire, but only to fire a low-level blast.
Yeah, because she's like, okay, we need to get this out. Well, if we do a low-level blast, it would break this part apart, and that means the kid wouldn't have to start firing everything else at maximum power.
Yeah, and so they're able to do that. They're able to communicate that, I think, because Moya is still connected to her child.
And the child does listen to its mother in this case. And
so it's a low-level blast which sends fire up the shaft that
Chiana has to run like hell,
and she just manages to get out of there before being caught by the blast. It's very kind of tense and
it's really running from the explosion, being thrown away by the shockwave kind of scene. And I like that Chiana coming back a little dazed, like, that was a low-level blast.
Yeah,
oh boy.
But the offspring breaks free and everyone is unharmed.
I'm assuming Moya's a bit scorched, but
otherwise okay. Yeah. This is also intercut along with scenes on the surface where they're escaping, and there's just a shootout has started happening now.
Yeah.
Because they've reached the top of the base and are making their way to the transport pod, and then peacekeepers come up out of the base as well and are shooting at them. They're hiding. There's basically a lot of walls and stone walls and open windows, and it's kind of like a ruined area.
It's a ruined area, clearly, because it was nuked, I think, at some point. That's the only thing they could tell about it.
And so they're having a shootout, and basically everyone's got a weapon at this point, including Stark, who's shooting.
Yeah,
at the rest
I do like that Stark is also here with one of the heavy shoulder-mounted weapons, just blasting away. And at first, it's kind of unclear how this battlefield is set up. There is a shot from overhead, like halfway through, but that only shows half of the group. What I didn't like about this one is that it wasn't clear where everybody was and what was going on.
It was very chaotic, yeah. Which I think was probably a little bit intentional, just to be like, this is kind of mad, this is hectic.
I don't like it for my action scenes. I like to have an idea of where everything is going, because that gives you a better idea of what the stakes are.
It's because you're a DM, that's why.
Not the only reason.
But it is a reason. It's not the only reason.
It's probably not even the biggest reason. I mean, there's a difference between playing D&D and actually directing something.
Listen, we have to get the D&D references back in. We've been slacking. We need more of them.
Okay, fine.
It's okay, so you set up the battlefield here. John uses his extra move. And
Fine. This is the episode where they don't use grid, okay? That's why. It's
I see.
See, they're fine. You happy now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Finally.
This is what you put up with every week.
We do also have there's some fun dialogue in this because as they're having the shootout, Stark and John are talking to each other. He's like, they reveal to each other what the memories they were keeping, and Stark's like, it was a place I saw as a little boy. What was yours? And he's like, oh, it's when I kissed a girl. They both laugh about it.
Laugh about it because they're like, wait, really? That was it? Yep.
Yep.
And then they start shooting at the peacekeepers. I do like that. Like he said, a place I saw as a boy. I'm assuming that's his home planet, which he's protecting.
Yeah, probably something like that.
That's kind of what I read into that.
Yeah. And so they're making their escape. There's a lot of crossfire, but then Scorpius appears and he's grabbed John.
Yeah, because as they manage to group up again, because they were separated from in the battlefield, they managed to group up and everybody leaves, and Scorpius grabs John. It's like, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, puts a gun to his head. It's like, you're coming with me. But this is when we have Jelena appears.
Shows up with a rifle.
Heroic rescue, and John's immediately like, shoot him!
I even like that he's laughing, like, shoot him, Jelena, like, we got him. But I think
she hesitates.
Yeah, and Scorpius just shoots her. John manages to escape because at that point he doesn't have a gun pointed at his head anymore, so he manages to knock back Scorpius, and he has this remote, turns around, tries to fire at Scorpius, who's just run. Because he knows that, like, I'm not waiting for John to point that gun at me. Everybody else comes back, realizing that, hey, where did John go?
Yeah, and John picks up Jelena and carries her away.
Yeah.
And so
she's still in pain. She's not dead.
Yeah, she basically gets shot in the stomach and collapses. And so John picks her up and takes her back onto the pod, and they go back to Moya. And so we get back to Moya. Pilot says Jelena managed to scramble the channels before she left, so now no one will be able to detect Moya for a while.
Yeah.
But they still can't move very far.
Reset everything, I think.
Yeah, and they still can't move very far, and they can't starburst with the offspring yet.
Yeah, because I assume both Moya and the kid are currently not in that great of health. They're not really ready to do anything impressive. I don't even know if the kid could starburst. I mean, at this point, we don't know everything. Every possibility is off.
I mean, what we can infer, like, basically the child is a hybrid of a normal Leviathan and just a ton of Peacekeeper weapons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a very unusual, unique thing that they don't know a lot about. So right now, they're just staying where they are. They can't be tracked, so they're okay for a while, but they'll have to leave eventually.
Yeah.
And Jelena is lying down on her bed, and Zan is tending to her, but it doesn't look good.
No, she's in a lot of pain.
Yeah, and John asked Jelena why she came back for them, and she said, actually, basically, she realized what we were talking about. That, right? Yeah, if I stay here, they will find me and then kill me. So I probably should have left. So she realized that she made kind of the wrong choice, and it's like, right, we'll get out of here. But it didn't work because, well, she got shot.
Yeah, and at this point, like I mentioned, she's in a lot of pain, and at this point, Stark comes in. He's like, "Mind if I help?"
Yes. And
he holds his hand above her head and gives her a memory. I'm assuming from the place he's been hiding for so long.
Oh yeah, no, it's explicitly that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been keeping this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it's apparently a beautiful place. That's what Jelena tells us because we can't see it.
Yeah.
And he says, hold on to that. And it seems to give her comfort and ease her pain a bit.
Yeah.
And at that point, I like there's a half glance between Stark and Zahn that they know that, like, okay, we need to leave. We need to leave these two
alone, yeah.
For a moment, John and Jelena.
So they do, and then Jelena she's in pain. She's weary.
She's dying.
She's dying, basically. John is emotional, upset about it. And then Jelena says to John, like, if things were different, could you have loved me? And for a change in this kind of scene, John actually gives an answer. He says, he actually smiles about it. He says, yeah.
Yes. I like that because the question the question Jelena is actually asking is like, was it me or was it the circumstances?
Yeah, exactly.
And John answers with, it was the circumstances.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if Aeryn had come into the picture, this could have worked out. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, this is just how things went.
Yep.
And Jelena seems to
She's
accept
okay with
that.
that.
She's like, yeah, okay, like, we tried our best and it just wasn't meant to happen. And I do like that she asks him to kiss him at the end.
Kiss her one last time, which he does, and then...
I mean, he hesitates for a moment. He's like, and she's like, no, come on.
And then he does, and then she passes away, and she's dead.
We hear her breathe her last breath. And I'm like... The thought in my mind, in the back of my mind was like, Aeryn will forgive me for this.
Yeah.
But she'll never hold that against
She'll
me.
understand. Like,
Yeah.
But that's it. That's when we get the titles. That's the end of the episode. That's a heavy thing to end on.
And I saw Jillian's death coming halfway through the episode.
Yeah,
for
like,
some reason, like it is. I mean, if you know how stories are structured, then you can see that one coming. But what I really like about this is that a price had to be paid.
Yeah.
Because they were going up against an entire base of peacekeepers, Krei, Scorpius, a command carrier in the sky, and they were just going in with a small group and getting out.
Oh yeah.
Had to have your enemies remain serious and remain dangerous. That can never come without a cost.
Exactly. It's much more effective when something gets lost because of that.
Yeah, in this case, it was Jelena. Which I'm kind of bummed out about, because I would have liked her on the ship, actually.
It would have been... Do you want a love triangle? Because that's how you get a love triangle.
No. I would have hoped that it wouldn't have become a love triangle. I hope they would have... I mean, I like stepping away from that, personally.
Oh, yeah, like, I would have preferred...
I don't like love triangles, actually.
Well, no, me neither, but that's what I mean, is, like, that's probably why they didn't do that, because they have... I mean, they have a relationship.
I would have really liked Jelena bonding with Aeryn.
It would have been
that's the scenes I would have liked, and integrating into the group that has gotten more close knit by this point, and maybe her also bonding a bit with Chiana because they both came in late.
Maybe
Stark if he sticks around.
Yeah, but like you said, a price had to be paid, and it wasn't. I don't know. It's probably a little early on for it to be one of the main characters. You know.
That is true. And Jelena,
Jelena is like the secondary character who has a relationship with John, and basically she's. It makes the most sense.
I do like that between the 3 episodes, the few episodes that we see her, Peek at Tech Girl, and the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
That there is an arc for her.
Yeah,
she does get a small arc, like the fact that first they fall in love. She wants to come. She can't. She decides to stay.
Yeah.
Realizes that's a bad idea, and this ends.
I wish they'd
given her... is a love interest character.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
As I plot that out,
I do wish that she'd been given a bit more of an identity beyond being a secondary love interest for John.
Yeah.
Which we do get. We get a bit more of that in PK Tech Girl when we find, her backstory and all of that. But that doesn't really get mentioned much. She's just... But... I think all told, it was pretty effective, and
it was nice to see her pop up again.
Yeah, but as for everything else in the episode, like the standout scene for me has to be Aeryn confronting Chris.
Yep.
That was real good.
There's nothing I can add to that. I've already said why it's good.
Yeah,
I love it,
and we've had
it's a culmination of her entire arc for the season.
Yeah, and I love that, just kind of like throwing off finally I'm not gonna even think about going back. I don't care anymore. Goodbye.
She's finally thrown off the last shackles attaching her to her peacekeeper past.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yes.
She now is her own independent person.
Way. Perfect.
Okay. So this is a tangent.
Okay.
We might cut it out.
Tangent time.
Hats, you watch a lot of Doctor Who, right?
Yes.
How do you like the writing of the current showrunners?
Hit and miss. Frequently miss.
Yeah. Why is that?
Lots of reasons. Nothing means anything.
I mean, what I've heard you say several times is that the stakes are always
right.
Something is going to be blown up. Something is going to die. Something is.
Well, the stakes. The stakes are too big. The stakes are too big to so that you know that it's gonna be fine. And like everything is gonna be like there's frequently like the universe is gonna explode, or the most common one in Doctor Who is that Moffat does is the Doctor is dying, which he's done like 6 times. And like that you're not gonna kill off the main character of your show. This is we know that going in, which makes it it's not effective storytelling because you're like, I don't feel any tension for this because I know he's not going to die. No. And you can get away with those types of stories if you can get the audience in that split second where it might actually look like the hero is going to fail. Yeah. And I think that's one of the... I need to see more episodes of Doctor Who, which I'm probably not going to do, but that might be the point where Moffat fails. It is.
What I like about this episode is because the stakes are in some ways lower, but because in this one there's actually something to lose.
Yes.
You can lose and actually lose something important, which in this case is Jelena.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they try and do in the Doctor Who stuff is they end up... Some price does have to be paid, but frequently it gets reset, which is the problem in that like nothing really means anything going on.
Yeah, a price has to be paid and the price needs to be permanent.
It needs to mean something, yeah, which it absolutely does. And this is why I love stuff like Farscape and other things that do smaller stories. Because the funny thing with smaller stories is you can actually have higher stakes.
Yeah.
Because they mean something. Because you're like, anything can kind of happen. This is... Firefly does the same thing very well in that it's one crew of people and about their relationships to a much larger world, and they've got their own stories and their own things that they're all trying to do. Mm-hmm. And so anything can happen to them. When your stories are bigger and are like, we're going to try and save the universe, or something is attacking the universe, it's fine the first time. When it keeps happening, you're like, well, I don't care anymore. And
I think it's also... I'm going to tout out a word I might end up using more often. I think it's a part of empathy. Because the universe is an abstract thing.
Yes.
I don't have any empathy with that. And it being blown up, that's bad, but that's only bad because we are told it's bad. Whereas, I like your idea on Firefly, but I actually go... Instead of just a character dying, let's say a character's reputation being irreversibly damaged.
Yeah.
Because we care about this character and we understand what that would mean for that character. We actually care about that happening or not. And because it's something that, could take the story in an interesting direction. Like, the universe is blown up. Okay, the story's over if that actually happens. So that's not going to happen. Whereas the reputation is ruined. That could be that story could go both ways and still be interesting. So those are stakes we care about.
Yeah, and the other thing is once you have your first story in which the universe or to another extent Earth or whatever gets threatened. Once you have that happen the first time, where do you go from there? Like the universe is going to be threatened and may explode, and you save the universe. Great. You can't go up from there. You can't have a quote bigger threat than that.
Yeah, but I don't think seeking a bigger threat is the problem.
Well, no,
because at some point you'll hit that ceiling anyway. You need to find that drama in other locations, and I think you can easily blow up the universe, threaten to blow up the universe 20 times. You just need to figure out why we should freaking care about it every time again.
Yeah, and so what Farscape does is it's just. It's smaller stories about this group of people, and it's not about it's not really about spectacle. It's about character.
Yeah,
that's the major problem I have with stuff like the Doctor Who things that I don't like most of the time. It's all about the spectacle. It's about we're going to have the biggest, loudest explosion, and we're going to blow up the universe twice, and it's not about the characters. And Farscape is just so heavily based on character,
yes,
which makes it so good when it is good. Like when Farscape is good, it's really good.
I agree.
When it's bad, we've had one episode so far. It's pretty bad.
Episodes, but that's fine.
It's just all the all the character stuff is so well done, and like again, like Grace and Aeryn's scene is a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's one person's journey of her throwing off her old life that was oppressing her and was basically forcing her into servitude as a soldier, and throwing that off and becoming her own person and rejecting it because for a long time she wanted to go back to it, but now
she knew she couldn't, but secretly deep down inside she wanted to, and I think at this point she doesn't actually want to anymore.
Exactly, and that's just a very simple, I mean, it's a very straightforward, very small, contained little thing, but it's so great and effective to see that it's like you do care and you are excited when she's like, you know what, no, screw this, I'm never going back. You're just like, yes, go on, Aeryn.
Yeah,
and
that was, I think that's, I wanted to discuss that, because I was reminded of that when we were watching this episode and Jelena died. I was like, that was actually impactful. Like, you wanted her to live. And the story would have been interesting both ways.
Exactly.
That's a stake that could have gone either way.
The other thing is, one thing I do want to say about like high stakes things and how this is different is that a lot of times with shows like this, or with just, I mean, fiction in general, the good guys usually end up winning.
Yes.
Like, so if you have a thing with the superhero film, the Avengers are fighting Ultron, you know that the Avengers are going to win, and so you're like, so the story has to do a job of making you feel the tension that they're not going to win and that there is a real threat. Frequently that doesn't work. Frequently those threats feel empty because they don't do a good enough job of building up the villains, building up the stakes, even though you know that they're going to win.
But I think there's two things you need to think about. One, you can write it in such a way that in split moments you actually think they might lose.
Yeah.
And you need to be far more interested in what winning will cost them. Not only in physical means, or like people or resources, but also what that would cost them emotionally. What that does to them.
And I do think that some of the bigger properties that have existed for a long time are actually kind of in a tough spot because they have to have some kind of status quo so that people keep, because they keep being made, you know? They keep being thrown out, or they keep being published, so that you have to keep some things the same, which kind of hamstrings the writing a bit because you can't do something as bold. Like, you take the example of Doctor Who, right? You can't kill off the Doctor. You straight up can't do that.
No, you can't.
Or like the Avengers, it's like, you can't really, I don't know, you can't kill off Iron Man.
You might be able to because it's an ensemble cast.
The problem with Iron Man, though, is that he makes the most money.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I mean, is like...
Jr. has had to put his foot down to make sure everybody else gets equal pay.
Yeah.
But it finds it ridiculous.
But in something, this is kind of self-contained, and it doesn't have to try and... Like, it has the freedom to kind of do what it wants, which is part of what makes it really good, I feel, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not even done yet. We've got 2 more episodes to go.
I mean, no. And there's some... You mentioned some things I'd like to get into, but maybe we'll do that later in the in the next few episodes, because there were some things I wanted to hook into, but this episode is going long enough.
Oh, yeah. We don't want to keep you here for too long.
No.
But yeah, to sum up what we thought of this episode, I really enjoyed it. If we were going to give it a rating out of 5, what would you say?
Oh,
it's definitely
either a 4 or a 5.
It's definitely a 4 at least a 4
at the very least.
I'm tempted to bump it up to a 5 because I can't think of anything that really stood out to me as being bad. And the bits that were good were really good, like Aeryn's scene with Grace, and
I think I'm gonna have to stick with a 4.
Yeah,
because there were a few scenes where I was like, you could have lost that. It didn't do anything. Like, a few scenes might have been setting up something, like Darwin the Quilted Blade. I'm like, at this point, we didn't really need the explanation.
Yeah, that one does seem a little bit out of place, but
yeah, and we didn't really need it, and it didn't really expand on any character bits. Like, the only thing I could see happening is that race that he mentions coming back, and I'm kind of expecting that to happen, but like I said, I don't know.
No.
There's also a scene where it's a very brief scene where Scorpius looks around the fire and then walks along the fire after the battle and then walks away. And like, we didn't need that.
I don't know. I thought that was more. That felt more in place with everything else because it's he's looking at what he has now, which is nothing.
Yeah, fair. But he didn't have the look.
That's
the
true.
appropriate
Okay.
look on his face.
Okay.
That's why I was
see.
confused with it.
Fair enough.
I didn't know what the functions, and also the fact that there were basically two stories happening separately.
I don't think that's necessarily a problem because
no, that's true. But it's one of those minor gripes I have with the episode.
It didn't feel because of all the setup we've had with like Moya giving birth to the baby, all of that stuff. That kind of had to happen in this episode, and there isn't really a way to tie that in with everything else. Like those are two very separate stories.
I'm pretty sure there would have been a way to do it. But that would require a different script.
Well, yeah,
for this episode. I'll be honest with that. That would require some heavy rewrites, but I think it's possible. And I'm not going to get into why because I don't entirely know why at the moment.
It may be. It didn't bother me because it really only becomes a problem for a few scenes at the end. The rest of the time it's like, right, everyone else is dealing with this, we've got to deal with this while they're off doing that.
Yeah, that's... Okay. Despite that, I think I'm still going to go with a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm pretty sure... It's a low 5, like, on the cusp. But I think it's mostly Aeryn's scene with Grace that...
Yeah, definitely.
That compensates for a lot, because
Right,
that's a very good scene.
Alright, there you go. I mean, this is a strong end so far. We've got 2 episodes to go before we end season 1. We're almost done. We're almost there. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Next week is going to be the episode called Bone to be Wild. And everything so far this is Hidden Memory is sort of a part 2 of the 2-parter that starts with Nerve. Bone to be Wild is still part of the finale, but it's kind of a bit more standalone. And so the quick synopsis is, while on the run from the Peacekeepers, the crew of Moya take shelter in a hollow asteroid with a breathable atmosphere and plants, but they soon discover that the asteroid is not as free of predators as they thought.
Ooh.
So yeah, that does sound like a kind of more standalone episode, but we'll see.
We might need a breather after
yeah, we
this.
might need a break after those 2 very heavy episodes. All those scenes in the Aurora Chair. Let's take a breather, yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll be back for that next week, and yeah, that was Hidden Memory. We hope you enjoyed the episode of the podcast. We certainly enjoyed the episode of Farscape. It was, oh yeah, very good, and I'm excited to almost wrap up this first season.
Yeah.
We're getting there. So yeah, thank you all for listening, and in the meantime, until next week, you can find us on social media. I'm at Twitter. We're both on Twitter. I'm at CantWearHats, Red's at Fadolkin in Tree.
Yes.
And there is also the CantWearHats Patreon, which is patreon.com/CantWearHats, which is what allows this to be done. It is thanks to your support, and it also supports my Twitch streams and other projects, so patreon.com/CantWearHats if you want to check that out. So thank you to everyone who supports on there. And there's also the YouTube and Twitch/CantWearHats for archives of previous streams and other things. So yeah, we'll see you next time for Bone to be Wild, and until then, goodbye.
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 Hey, Hats, I'd like you to meet my little baby cousin, Bobby.
Oh, hey, wait, does he have shotguns for legs?
Look, he's an experimental prototype, okay?
Is that a 9mm strapped to his head?
He's very sensitive about it.